This is Francis Sideco with TIRIAS Research. I'm here with Anshuman Saxena, back again. This time around, instead of Hawaii, we're in Las Vegas at CES 2025 in Qualcomm's booth. So, Anshuman, welcome. Good to talk to you again.
Thank you. Thanks, Francis. It's always good to connect with you. And
Likewise.
yeah, it's not the beautiful waters in Hawaii, but we have the great Snapdragon right behind us.
Our background last time was a little bit more scenic than this time for sure. But so we talked back in October. It's been basically a quarter, 3 months.
Yeah.
What's the reception been around Cockpit Elite and Ride Elite? And as you guys announced that.
That's a good question to get started. So yes, we talked about and announced Ride Elite and Cockpit Elite at the Snapdragon Summit in October.
Yeah.
And since then, of course, we have been connecting with a lot of the customers. We had a couple of car makers, automakers who announced that they are going to be using the Elite platforms. Since then, we have made a lot more progress, a lot more traction. We have tier 1s who have got their ECUs, their control units already available on the Elite platforms, which are now going into the hands of the automakers to start their own development and bringing up their solutions. At the same time, the capability that Elite platforms bring, whether it's Cockpit or Ride, the kind of integration that you can bring, that all is coming to life after the announcements that we did at the summit. So very excited about it. There is a lot of traction. We believe 2025 will be a great year for us on the Cockpit, Ride, Elite platforms, and even on the platforms that we have right now in the hands of the customers, which are going into production later this year.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, with all of this activity on Elite specifically, on whether Cockpit or Ride, when do you expect vehicles with Elite in it to hit the road?
Yeah, so I think we had talked about it, but the more we look at it, engaging with the customers, we expect in 2026, we will have vehicles on the road with the Elite platforms, and then a lot more traction for the 2027 programs that will be launching.
Are those designs for 2027 starting to happen now?
Yes, and that's why I said that as we have been making progress, there is a lot more engagement, lot more new design approaches, how the architectures of the vehicles changing. We are engaging with the automakers, the tier 1s, the ecosystem players to bring in all of those software components in the SDV approach on the Cockpit, all the Ride Elite, and this is happening right now so that the cars can be on the road in 2027.
Okay, and then but you do expect some to hit the road in 2026.
Yes,
as well.
So starting with 2026 and picking up in 2027.
So any Qualcomm-based vehicles that hit the road in this year, because I know there's going to be a few that are going to be hitting the road this year. Those aren't going to be Elite. Those are going to be Qualcomm Snapdragon Cockpit
and the Ride platform.
So the previous generation.
Yeah. So we have been continuously through the year in 2024 announcing a lot of launches on our Cockpit and the Ride platforms, and as recently as earlier this week at CES, we made announcements of specifically on the Ride and the digital chassis with OEMs like Leap Motors, where we are going to be bringing up their new vehicles on a complete Snapdragon digital chassis, Cockpit and Ride platforms later this year. This year, as I said, is going to be very interesting, where we are bringing in very new experiences. Of course, the safety is a critical part. Ride SoCs and Ride platforms are solving that problem with multiple automakers, whether it is in China, global automakers. We have the BMW SOP lined up, which we have publicly talked about. So those things are in the pipeline. But more important, the user experiences that we can bring in as a complete digital chassis concept, right? Where you have inputs from the sensors feeding directly into the cockpit experiences, and the cockpit having a lot of the AI capabilities, where you can run the large language models, the vision models, multi-models, model LLMs that can take in the inputs from the sensors, from the text, from the images, and create some really differentiated experiences which we are demonstrating.
Yeah.
That is what will be the story for 2025. AI in the car, AI as a new UI. Whatever happens in the car stays in the car, which basically means privacy of the data.
Yeah.
Use AI with the data that is there in the car. So that is how we are approaching the problem.
I think you bring up a good point, and some of my other conversations with your Qualcomm Auto colleagues actually brought up another good point. Is that you guys are in telematics aside from ADAS and IVI, and for some of those partners that you guys have that take all three from you, that gives you the full context of what's happening, whether it's with the vehicle, the environment around the vehicle, or in the cabin. And
Yes.
when it comes to AI, the more the context, the better
Exactly.
experience. Yeah.
Brilliant point, and that's exactly the point, right? I mean, how can you bring the context, and you know what happens, and if you again walk through the whole AI story that we are showing at the CES show today, you will see how the connected vehicles and the context within the car, outside the car while it's driving, and from your home, from your garage, from your ecosystem, from the cloud, all that coming together into the car is giving you a much better personalization which is tuned for you,
Yeah.
not a generic implementation that will be there on the cloud.
So let's dial back a little bit as we were talking about designs that are starting to happen now and so forth. As we look at these advanced capabilities, one question that I've always had is, do the OEMs have to have already transitioned to a central compute zonal architecture to take advantage of all the great things you guys are putting in play? Or even if some of their models might still be at the legacy architecture, they can still take advantage, because I know a lot of those OEMs, they're not flipping the switch, right? I mean, some of the ones in maybe China or greenfield OEMs, they're starting out, central zonal right away, but a lot of the big guys, they're still trying to make the transition. So are they able to I mean, BMW is obviously taking advantage, so it looks like you don't need to necessarily go that way, but maybe you can give us some insight there.
I think again that's a great question, because and it's a pretty detailed topic, right? There is no yes or no answer for that question, right? Because this experience is a transition. It's a gradient of how you will be able to achieve different experiences based on what information, what context is available for you, right? The more raw input is available, the better you can have it for a context awareness, which is basically directly leading to this multimodal compound AI that we talk about, right? What does that mean? You have individual components, like the domains in the vehicle. They do their own tasks of what they're supposed to do. For example, in ADAS ECU, getting information from the sensors, consuming it over there, and not passing it to the cockpit is depriving cockpit of an experience that can be created. Now we have connected the two ECUs, right? So they can still talk to each other and pass the information. The more you integrate, the better it will be on the latency standpoint. So you are getting audio inputs going into your ADAS systems, or the frames from the cameras coming into your cockpit system with the lowest latency possible. If you go more and more zonal to centralized architectures,
Yep.
versus keeping it in a modular specific domain architectures, right? So can we not recreate the user experiences and use the AI in the current vehicle architectures? Absolutely yes. Qualcomm, Ride, and Cockpit, and the telematics platforms, the connected platforms, are designed, even if used modular in the domains, can benefit a lot from the compute capabilities and the software infrastructure that we put. But if you go more towards a centralized, that is driven by the architectural choices of the automakers, the SDV approaches, and Qualcomm brings in the compute capabilities, your experiences will start showing way more differentiation. So it's a journey. It's a journey for the automakers. Exactly like you said, it won't flip on overnight, and they will make the transitions, but the experiences are slowly coming into it from a current architectures more towards the central architectures.
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking the time to get us an update on Elite and Cockpit and Ride Elite, and how that's going. And looking forward to talking to you more over the year, hopefully with some more updates.
Absolutely, I am excited about 2025, what we are launching and announcing at CES, and surely would be interested to talk more and more as we make progress in the year. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Francis.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
It was
Anshuman.
good. Thank you.
You.